Here's an example of a plant that we had in Europe, in France. They were making something that they were making a metal piece with microfinish, and we had just spent over $1 million on this new automatic compensating machine a number of years ago. So $1 million was quite a bit. And so they ran 50 pieces. All the pieces were in spec. They said, see, we got our money's worth. I said, turn the compensating equipment off. Run 50 more. We argued a little bit, but I had the authority. So they ran 50 pieces. That's what they got. Same specs. I don't care if you know anything about variation. That result is better than this result of compensating for everything, every piece of data. Actual data. We see this all the time. You end up with twice the variation had you just left it alone. Now, obviously, there are caveats. Don't just sit back and don't adjust things. But you need to understand the theory behind it.
我就知道说，我们今天要讲的是戴明博士的这个经济学里面的一个 chapter 里面的70%。那各位看看，他在70年代初的时候，只有第7讲那样子。你看他介绍一个，就是说这个红猪实验里面有一个嫂子是这样子啊，就是有50个，对啊，50排50个哈，那这个这样就是50哈。那它这个样子就是这样子啊，样子这样子，然后要怎么做呢？我们今天要让大家感觉一下，因为这个红猪实验的录影带，戴明的录影带在 YouTube 里面有非常多的，它只是讲英文的而已。那各位那个现在的影片里面有些那个 YouTube 底下有一个CC 的那个样子啊，就是说点下去的话就会有那个英文字幕。是自动的那个 YouTube 里面的自动的英文字幕，所以你就可以看一下说戴明在讲什么，因为他年纪大，讲英语讲得很不清楚啊。可是你字幕可以看得出来，那我逼的好。
Red bead experiment. On the other extreme, the funnel experiment, everything you did to try to move the funnel made things worse. Management, because they can move things, management very easily can make things worse. The red bead experiment, management says quality is your job, and we're going to try some things, but you're responsible for quality. You're responsible for your work. Let's see what Dr. Deming says in setting up the bead experiment. You can immediately see that his seminars have maybe 300 or 400 people attending. He was able to fill the room. There were enough people who wanted to see what great minds were thinking. Not that he was a good teacher, an enunciator, etc., but there was enough people interested to see what he considered to be the important questions, what he was thinking about. In that respect, a great teacher. But if you ask the students to grade, which we do now, I think did they do grade professor evaluations here by the students? I hate to tell you, students, but you don't know enough to grade the professors. 30 years from now, you will be able to identify a professor who impacted your life. Right now, what are you voting for? Someone with a sense of humor. I know that's difficult in professors. But someone, great personality. Yeah, oh, he's fun. He's easy. She's easy. Okay. That's not the grade. You don't know enough to grade your professors. I'll start a war there. Okay. Now we get a chance to listen to the good doctor. I'm standing in the middle of the thing, trying to video him.
On the broad side and pour at a distance of 12 centimeters. You'll simply pour. You'll observe no gymnastics. I did not get around like this. I simply poured like that. is to mix the material. You'll then return your beads from the smaller vessel into the large one at a distance of 12 centimeters, nearly 4. You'll then use the paddle and do your day's work. We have work standards here, 50 per day. There's everything wrong except one thing: our inspectors will be independent. Everything else is wrong. We have work standards, 50 per day. And we have a goal: only one red bead in a workload. 0 or 1, that's our goal. You understand? Not more than one red bead. You'll dip the paddle into the material. The paddle has 50 depressions. And do you know why there are 50 depressions in the paddle? Are you all clear on the reason why? I'll explain it to you. There are 5 holes in one direction and 10 in the other. That makes 50. Are you clear? You think you understand it? You understand it. You'll take the paddle, use this paddle, use the handle, grasp it on the broad side with 2 fingers, dip it into the material, push down the bottom, gentle agitation, do not push, do not shake, do not shove. Simply raise it, holding it there 2 fingers, simply raise it, angle 15 degrees, axis horizontal, excess beads roll off. You have 50 beads. 50 is our work standard. Not 49, not 51, 50 exactly. I purposely made some red beads so you may see what they look like. You'll carry your work to inspector number 1. You'll count the number of red beads and no. Count the number of red beads, put down the count. In silence. Are you sure of the count? You're responsible for the count. Number 2 will count. Put it down in silence. Chief Inspector will compare the 2 counts. If there's a discrepancy, there may be a mistake. If they agree, there may be a mistake.
10 red beads.
And the word dismiss.
Dismiss.
Whereupon the worker will return his work. Return his beads to the incoming supply.
That is the setup, the explanation. He wanted specifically to set you up. He established a very specific procedure. If you just follow the procedure, pour 1 vessel, hold it specifically, explicitly in one hand and in a specific orientation. The paddle, or the second pouring 20 centimeters from the other vessel, holding the paddle at 15 degrees, etc., shaking or gently agitating, not shaking, establishing what a supervisor would establish. If you could only follow my instructions, follow the SOP, follow the WI, the work instructions, everything would be fine. Is it? He ran 5 drawings for each willing worker. He had 5 willing workers, 5 drawings, 25 in all. The red bead took about a little over an hour for him to go through this. If any of your professors have red beads, It is a very educational experience because you cannot begin to communicate the emotional problems, the emotional impact of the willing workers trying to make the fewest red beads. We'll talk about that. And so after the end of day one, the day one, we must follow the instructions of your foreman. He'd mentioned the goal is 1 or 0. Red beads were defects. No defects. Okay, 0 or 1. White beads were not defects. And so the results were awful during the first quarter, the first run. And so they try another management technique. We're going to put slogans on the wall. Quality is job one. Take pride in your work. Quality is your responsibility. He tries that. No difference. He says, okay, the results have no change, so effective immediately, we're going to give rewards, carrots. Employee of the quarter. I will do better because I'm trying to get employee of the quarter. That didn't work. Now at the end, he says, we've lost too much money. All of the people over here, you're fired. I want you people that remain, because I'm trying to protect the company, you people will remain. We'll pick up the slack. We still have to get this work out, but I'm only using my best workers. You're below average, you're fired. I'm using above average workers. Anyone who had lower than the average number of defects. No difference. This is at an extreme, but there are many situations where anything you do, everything you try, makes no difference because what you're focusing on, the people, are only part of the process. They're not the dominant source of variation. Here are the results of a stable system. And you will see when I talk about psychology that you can rank order. One worker made far more red beads than the best worker, and yet, is any worker responsible for those red beads? Maybe not. Quality is made at the top. Dr. Duran, Dr. Feigenbaum, Dr. Crosby, Dr. Ishikawa all agreed. They disagreed on a number of things, but they all agreed quality is made at the top of the organization. Who designed the production system for the red bead experiment? Management. Who sourced the supplier? Management. Who said, don't ask questions, just do what I say, I'm the foreman? Management. Who made the decision to produce this particular product? Management. Who made the decision to spend the money on the machines, the equipment used to process this product? Management. Management is responsible for the quality of the output. But even more important is the quality of their decisions that they make that end up affecting the future. Rigid and precise procedures are not sufficient to produce quality. The engineering department could have come up with a robot that precisely poured 20 centimeters, that every time went in at 5 degrees or 10 degrees, completely automated the human procedure so that it was precise, far better than any individual and certainly far better than any sequential group of people could perform. And do you think that would have made any difference? No. There would have been no difference in the output. Some days more defects than others. When there are fewer defects, we're happy. When there are more defects, we're bopping moles. Nothing is working in this situation. People are not always the dominant source of variation. We can rank order the data from the most defects to the least defects, create a list, and rank ordering can be very misleading unless you understand the process by which the data were collected. Numerical goals are often meaningless. We'll talk about that tomorrow when we talk about systems thinking, what numerical goals can do in many situations. They can be useful, but they can also be hugely destructive. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Finished up on variation. Only got a few more slides to go, though. Psychology. It's incomplete without understanding variation. If you understand the red beads, you're not going to make what psychologists would call the fundamental attribution error. And that means pointing at the particular person and blaming or praising that person for the complete results of the process. Okay? It's very easy driving in Taipei to make the fundamental attribution error. I drive in Taipei and some idiot cuts me off. How dare they do that? Okay, I'm blaming them. Well, maybe they're very, very late for a meeting, or maybe they have a very good reason and they are not ordinarily, in my eyes, rude. They don't do that in Taichung, do they? Yeah, I think so. So, fundamental attribution error. The best salesman, the salesman, I'm going to reward you, give you 20%, 100% of salary for being best salesman of the year. Did the salesman do it? You'll take it. But maybe the economy said that was great. Maybe Hewlett-Packard or Toyota moved into his area that quarter and was buying. Nothing to do with him. But, I'm going to celebrate best performance. So that's the fundamental attribution error. You've been making that mistake, a psychological mistake, if you don't understand statistics. Helps us to understand people as different as individuals and members of families and teams. And fear invites wrong figures. For the first one, did the people do it? Here's the rank order. Kurt made the most and John made the least red beads. Did the people do it? Should you be celebrating John or Kurt? No, celebrating John because he made the fewest, and firing Kurt because he made the most defects? You'd be making a big mistake, making a fundamental attribution error. They didn't make the defects. People are different. With my framework of physical, logical, and emotional, we can look at process dominance. Is it supplier dominant? Is it producer dominant? Or is there a blending of input and output? One of the first things we do, and one of our first maturing challenges,
世界名书我都包括过来，是的，包括一个电影，他会去那个拍个嘛，我在公家去经过哈。我在1965年，我参加亚洲地区的第一届品管会议，在香港的，我去参加，发表论文去参加。迄个香港嘛，你们的 association， 这group 真正够有啦，咱就讲推广品管的啦。我去参加是我是发表论文的嘛，有请 guest speaker， 请这三浦新，有那些，这三浦新呢，就是日本的那个身材 test 专家，观感检查，伊是 guest speaker， 我自己给熟悉，熟悉了， 我就开了，等于1965年3月啦。等于了我10月，但是因为一个 project， 我考取了日本的迄种奖学金。去日本。早稻田大学生产管理研究所。去读1年啦。
1年。
1年。我当教的是，我先敲定了三浦新。三浦新我就甲讲嘛，你知影？迄阵你有知影？我1965年，戴明博士是主导日本是1950年。迄阵拄要举办一个，拄15年啊，就主所人纪念。日本请戴明去中国15周年纪念发表会。伫这个什么所在呢？伫这个西比亚国开路，就叫日比国公会堂等于我们的中山堂。介绍我苏丹生熟悉。
三浦新介绍。
苏丹就邀请我参加这个。我去吼，我真好，伊大会拢是 top management， 就是讲社长参加的。伊要纪念戴明，所以迄日就坐台顶啦。伊甲请我去坐台顶，也请我去主任上，我坐戴明边仔呢，我就很有荣幸。所以先介绍，这日本几百个，迄种 top 拢写准啦。阮今日是请戴明来15周年纪念吼，咱有一个 guest， 从台湾来做品管的朱清章先生。你讲香港叫你讲一下。
赵老师，你的日文名字要怎么讲？
小西秀。
小西秀。
香港叫一个 speech 啦，现在不甲我讲咧。我唔知说，是不香港人用 top 咧，写准咧，嗰个戴明边啊。我开始咧用英语来讲讲，来人都安尼讲讲吼。但是我讲，因为这个人台拢日本人个啦，所以我还是用日语讲，较会当表达。我从 English speech 讲了，我用日文讲。我讲我即摆像这个主任博士邀请我真欢喜吼，真感谢。我是当然做品质管理安尼吼。但是我就觉得，你日本来 QC 沙布，迄阵开始已经有法了。我嘛是台湾人咧做 QC 沙布，但是发现着吼，当然 QC 沙布。此外，好用表面工作做太济，表面实在是表面就是要做表，互伊主管看啊啥，才不确实就对啦。我来举一个例，讲日本古早时代，俄罗时代啦，江户时代，有一个武士，叫做欧达罗康，太田道观。迄阵讲3工，就是讲这个平时人这，参观足济哦。
真的吼。
台北一班，高雄也一班，我伫华王饭店办。
翻译王汉山。
迄阵我请王汉山。所以呢，迄阵也真轰动。我讲讲戴明特点，伊个人吼对品质足高嘛 ，never compromise。戴明贡献我讲是安怎呢？伊第一点咧讲体检有2点嘛，体检上最真正最严2点就是讲 customer satisfaction。戴明的内底就知道就是讲，符合品管 customer needs 是什么，所以这体检最少为下来，要 continuous improvement， 持续生产。这2点戴明就是伊14点来调好，伊14 point， 好了问题就了。所以这是戴明会使讲提取，因为不但是statistical quality control， 提取也是伊个原动力代码。伊最恨啥呢？最恨讲用强迫手段压迫这个员工做什么？我第一摆来时，我伫演讲，我演讲题目是切进来 MPO management of 就是目标管理。我就唔知啊。这边演讲我伫演讲，这边我伫演讲赛，我讲目标管理，我摇头。 你这目标管理，我一直在知影。哦。对，伊这现在呢，用目标管理，你给他定目标，你来定你就做到。啊，后来要淘汰你。要把那时阵按做不好，其实是你目标定唔对的。啊，你讲说，所以伊想头人讲喊口号，目标口号就是喊口号。对。伊想去提一个呢，伊想去到像讲，咱这个注意落实去，注意落实。石头顶上变讲咱的山路，啊，不想讲啊注意落实，我这人现实嘛，现在讲没来注意。你搞到别他注意，对不对？你搞下注意闹口言，你随下来别他注意，这根本人现实化口号。应该不是讲注意，就是应该你就甲把，因为落水就应该去除，唔得对。还是讲你阿袂好时，你基本袂使行，袂使对。你甲发觉注意落是高上路的，一直就是去这。哦。这韩国像咱等于咱一直讲反攻抗我啊，消灭讲这白痴嘛，对不对？讲迄无路用，一直讲伊想去一寡这个形式上，要同这压迫员工。这体制上，像一些工厂也好，公司也好，也品质不好的话呢，80%左右，88%，让 management 负责。管理的问题不是，你袂使讲伊管理，伊讲注意讲应该是 system 的问题，不是这个，你所以你若 system 管理无改善，你去改善不起来。伊讲这个管督图啥吼，那就讲遐尼变化啥吼，你讲改善无可能。你甲改善就你讲这个改善，你甲改善用几落来，所以你若无 process improvement， 你做家己方式无，你甲管督图安尼无好。你个 process improvement 倒有可能，
造可能。
所以伊话真彻底一了。伊个再讲，家己不能大风扇讲。不要一直找这个低成本的材料，想要用就出来这什么？你爱从设计开始改善它。伊是讲，唔是讲直接讲，甲咱唔能讲为着做 price fast， 唔是安尼。你爱伊记者嚟讲，直接讲，迄阵造车最要苦。伊讲无粮食嘛。无迄个工业商品在，所以讲需要迄个改良迄个农作物的品质，来开发迄个就对。所以你就是要改良，你要改良化，唔是讲要这么控制啥，你要先改良。所以迄阵伊就这个啥呢 fundamental consumption， 讲成本是要家己控制，但是呢，唔是讲要图标。买最便宜的东西不是安尼，伊讲你要控制不是，你红黑安尼不对。
两天，但是不同人来做，所以同一个像我这边纵走的话，就是当日生产的数字，不良率，不是不良率，是不良的数字。